Welcome back to the OurView Podcast. On today's episode, I welcome my guest, Annie Treml. Join our conversation as we discuss the 3 steps every family must take in order to create healthy relationships between their children who have disabilities and their typically developing siblings. I would like to welcome everyone back to another episode of the OurView Podcast, where we aim to raise awareness, educate, and change the tone of conversation about disabilities. On today's episode, I'd like to welcome my guest, Annie Treml, and I'm looking forward to this conversation today. We are going to discuss the family and disabilities and how the family dynamics are impacted, and specifically families that have children where one child or multiple children have disabilities and other children in the family do not have disabilities, which is uh, a great topic to address because, as I've mentioned before, I have an older sister who doesn't have a disability, and I'm the only person in my entire family who has a disability, a visible disability, I should say. Um, so that really does have an impact on the whole family dynamic and how people interact with each other. And so I thought this would be a great topic to address on the podcast today. So Annie, welcome to the podcast, and I am grateful to have you here today to share your knowledge with us on this topic.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be here.
Yeah, so if you could you just give us an introduction of yourself and tell us who is Annie Treml?
Well, who I am is many, many things, but I'll kind of start with what I do now, and then maybe we can go backwards and kind of figure out how I got to this crazy place in my life. So I am currently a family support strategist for special needs families. What I do is I help parents and siblings of children with special needs to find connection among all the chaos that often exists in the family and to make sure that everybody's needs get met equally. So often there are, and depending on the disability we know, but there are often many resources for the child with the disability, but very often other people in the family, including the siblings of that child, the resources aren't necessarily sought for them, or they're just not as readily visible to everybody in the family. So oftentimes, sometimes those things get overlooked. So that's what I do. That's my purpose. And the reason I kind of came to get to that point is because I myself am a sibling of a child with a disability.
Yeah, that's so interesting that really your life experience led you to what you do now, and that was my goal in going to college to get a psychology degree. I was hopeful to work with families who have children with disabilities because I feel like that is something my family could have benefited from. um, you know, and of course, plans change and life takes you in different directions. And I am totally happy with what I am doing now, as I work and do this job here of owning my company of OurView and working with a nonprofit that builds inclusive playgrounds. But it's so great when your life experience leads you to your passion and to and leading you to what it is you want to do in life, and where you find your place in the world to help other families and to help other people. So that's really great that's how that came to be. So
Yeah, well, it's definitely been a crazy road to get here, let me tell you.
yes. Yes. The next question I have for you is, could you give us the a few steps that parents cannot skip when they are looking to create a healthy relationship between their children with disabilities and their typically developing children?
Absolutely. And if it's okay with you, I'm going to
Yes.
go back just a little bit more and just talk a little bit about when I was a kid, because that's
Yes.
kind of how I came to get to this method that I use when I work with families that
Yes.
seems to work so well. Um, So I was the oldest of five. My middle sister, so it was me, two sisters, and two brothers. And my youngest sister, middle child, was the child with the disability. She had autism and intellectual disability. And then a whole host of other medical issues that kind of sometimes come along with those things. The thing about my family was it would have been crazy anyway, right? You have 7 kids and or 5 kids, 7 people, small house. We were already a little nuts. But you throw my sister in there and all the stuff that comes with that. And it really, it made it for a really unique dynamic. With that many people and a sister with such high need, and frankly, not a whole lot of money, most of our resources went to helping her. And it makes sense. And it's what we needed to do. But as a result of that, the rest of us were a little bit along for the ride. And some of that involved like lots of trips to clinics. Like we never took vacations. We would run around these huge clinics. Like I'll never forget when I was a kid, there's a variety of clinics, but one of the biggest ones was when we went to like Marshfield Clinic in Wisconsin. If you're at all familiar, it's like in the center of the state. It's an enormous series of buildings, thousands of doctors. And there'd be multiple appointments in one given day because they kind of try to group them together. But we'd be along for the ride. We'd be running through these halls, finding little places to cause trouble while my sister was getting all this crazy stuff done to her. But, that's kind of how our lives revolved around it. And we didn't know at the time that was anything other than what you might call typical. It was just our life. And we really did love it. But as I get older and I started to develop my own role identity and figure out who I was, I realized just how much of my life was shaped by being a sibling to a person with a disability. I was also, being the oldest, naturally a caretaker. I was someone who kind of picked up the slack. And, being a child of the 80s, we were just kind of told to go run. Sometimes we were left to our own devices. And that meant I was the one who was like, hey, you can't do that. You're going to burn the house down, like cut it out. Yeah. So being that caretaker, being that sibling, and then realizing as I grew up, like, what else am I? I had a hard time figuring out who I was on my own without that. And I think it caused me a lot of angst. It caused me a lot of trouble. And I never wanted to burden my parents with these issues that I was having. They had enough on their plate. There was plenty to do. There was enough to worry about. And I never wanted to bother them. That led me to being a young adult who really didn't know how to get my needs met. I didn't know how to ask for what I needed. I didn't know even if it was okay to want something or to want something different or ask what I needed. I didn't know if it was okay to have like guilty or resentful feelings about my siblings. I had no clue. I went into my adulthood that way and somehow managed, of course, being, looking for answers. I became a school psychologist, right? Educate thyself. So it turned out to be the perfect career for me in that I was able to learn a lot more about a wider variety of people with disabilities. I was able to learn a lot about myself and my role that I play personally and then what I could do professionally. And it really helped me to see the struggles, like what were my roadblocks when I was a kid? What could I have learned about? What could we have done as a family to get me to that place faster? And that's kind of where I came up with what I have now, which is, it's called the SSI Method. It's kind of based on the idea that a lot of siblings feel unseen. So many, for siblings, their loyalty to their sib is huge. I mean, when you have a child with a disability in the family, you become real close, right? You know the ins and outs. You go the good, the bad, the ugly, the dirty. Yeah. You know it all, and you're their biggest advocate, hopefully, and greatest supporter. But you also have these strange feelings because you're a sibling. You don't like them sometimes. You're mad at them. They tick you off. You're jealous. And I want, the SSI Method kind of helps parents have children be seen, their feelings be seen, their thoughts be seen, so that they can be a contributing member to that family in a way that's authentic to them and not just in a way where they feel they have to serve others.
That's really good. And it's so important because it is I love the name, the SSI Method, because it's almost like at times the other sibling takes the back seat, and it's all the attention, a lot of the attention is on the sibling that has the disability. And um and that's other sibling, or the other siblings are, they're individuals too, and it shouldn't, like you said, sometimes you just fall into certain roles and you just become the caregiver. And but outside of that, they are people and individuals too. So it really is, it's really great that you've created this.
Well, thanks. Well, and I mean, it's important to note too, this kind of dynamic isn't just bad for the typically developing sib. I mean, when you are having these feelings towards your sibling with a disability and you're not able to voice them, verbalize them, deal with them, that really affects your relationship with them. That's not fair to them either.
Right.
They're in the same situation as you are. You've been put there.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody created this.
Right.
So,
yeah. Nobody can control it. Yeah.
Right. No, and they at least of all have the ability. So it's really important for every member of the family so that those relationships and connections can happen. And so that as adults, you can have really good relationships.
Yeah, that's really cool. Really great. So that is, that's really great that you've created this. So what are the, what are the steps to the SIMI method?
Okay. So the SIMI method, like I said, is based on being seen, the idea that that's all of us want. So it starts with safety. And these steps can apply to any siblings in any family, but they, as you hear me talk about it, you'll kind of see how they're applied differently in a family with a child with special needs. So that first is safety. Whereas in a typical family or typical people, anybody needs to feel safe to feel seen. You need to feel safe in your family. You need to feel comfortable being you. However, as we know, in many families with disability, safety takes on a whole new look. If you have a child with a disability who has aggression, who is not able to verbalize and therefore uses physical means of communicating, safety is a whole nother issue. Some people obviously with disabilities have their own safety issues as far as keeping themselves well, keeping themselves healthy, keeping themselves taken care of. So when we look at that within families with disabilities, it's not just about establishing trust, it's about establishing actual, things and techniques in your home that keep everyone physically, mentally, emotionally safe.
Yeah.
So the second piece of SIMI method is the engagement piece. And really the engagement has a lot to do with, frankly, attention, being attended to as a person. Receiving that time and receiving that quality interaction with the people that you live with. So many times in families with disabilities, we simply run out of time. There's only 24 hours in a day. How much can you do? So it's really, really important that we figure out how to attend to all of the siblings in the family, particularly since, frankly, a lot of the times the child with a disability would love to have the attention of someone else for a little while. That's a good thing. It helps everybody, right? Yes. Sometimes they're just like, leave me alone, get out of my way, I'm fine. So, and there's other siblings in the family who would love that attention at that point. So we focus a lot on that. And then the last E in C is for empowerment. The idea that every single person in the family, including the typically and non-typically developing kids, need control. They need control of their own life. They need, the word I'm looking for is purposeful choices in their lives on how their role in the family, how things go. So it's, and unfortunately, oftentimes, if a family with disability is in crisis, control goes out the window, right? That's what we all want. Nobody has it and it's gone. And even on a day-to-day basis, if we don't set our environment up for support, like every day on a daily basis, we can often feel out of control and not even know why.
Right.
Simply because we don't have those supports in place. So that's a huge piece. And that's like the main core of the SIMI method is those three things: safety, engagement, and empowerment.
Yeah, they're all, like you said, they're all very much needed. And, and they really do apply to, any family really. And it's, definitely those families with children with and without disabilities. So it's very, very great. And I love the acronym for C. That's very easy to remember.
Thank you. That's what I was going for.
Yes. Very easy to remember. That's good. Nice and short. So, but
Yep.
yeah. So I loved, again, I loved hearing your story and your background of how you got to this point of wanting to create something that would be beneficial for families who have children with and without disabilities. And it's just really it's very important. Again, I when you were talking about your siblings being your greatest support, I always tell people there's nobody that fought more with me than my sister, but there's nobody who supported me more than my sister and looked out for
Yes.
me more than my sister.
Fought with you and fought for you.
Right.
And
Yes.
and sometimes both in the midst of in 1 minute, right?
Absolutely.
Could be
Yes.
one second and one the other.
And it's so funny.
Absolutely.
And I can remember my mom would always tell my sister, like, he uses crutches, he uses a wheelchair. He's going to be bigger and stronger than you one day, and he's going to hurt you. He's going to hurt you. And I'll never forget
Mhm.
it. She was, and we were not adults, but we were teenagers, and it was a sad story. It was the week that my dad had passed away, and I was 17. My sister was starting her first year of college in another state, so she had come home, and she came home and she wanted to lay in my bed with me. For what reason, I have no idea. Never did that before. But what she did was she was in my room to really just bother me. So she kept touching my face and she's like just doing things and just enough to bother me. So the one thing I remember, and I put my one arm under her neck and I put my other arm under her legs and I threw her across my body onto the floor. And all I remember is my mom saying in the next room, "I told you he would be bigger than you one day." And all my sister said was, "Okay, good night. I'll see you tomorrow." I was
And
like, "Leave me
suddenly the
alone."
dynamic
Yeah,
shifts.
I just kept saying, like, "Leave me alone, leave me alone." So I can definitely relate to what you were saying about your siblings, being your greatest support, but then just like
Yeah.
everybody else, every other family, it's you have your
Yeah.
arguments and your disagreements and things like that. And so it's really again, it's really great that you have created this this method and you're working with families to help everybody just work together and make the family make the family work. And that's the most important. We all have to work together because, again, like you said, it's something that nobody can change. Nobody created this the situation with the child having a disability, the sibling having a disability, but there are ways that we can all work together and just be successful as a unit and work together. So that is very, very important. Um, so what would be one piece of advice that you would give to parents who are raising children, raising a family where a child or multiple children have disabilities and others do not?
Yeah. That's a great question. My initial gut response is to say, hang on tight, but that's
Yes.
not very helpful. So I think what I'll say instead is don't isolate yourself. Be really aware of how you're responding when people offer to help you and whether or not you're isolating yourself. Because I find so many parents, particularly moms,
Mhm.
when someone offers to help, they have this conversation going through their head so quickly and almost unconsciously of, man, do they really want to help? Do they really want to see what's going on here in this household? Do they really want to see the reality of my life? Is it going to be too much for them to handle? Am I then going to have to deal with their feelings for how this is going for them if they're helping me? Wait a minute, it'll just be easier for me to do it myself. And suddenly what pops out of their mouth is, nope, I'm fine.
Mhm.
Right? It's just a form of isolating ourselves when really we need to be creating that circle of support that we talked about earlier. So my biggest thing is ask for help. Recognize when you might be isolating yourself or creating this barrier to
Mhm.
help, and look for support and wherever you manage to find it. There are many groups. There are coaches like myself. There are other families who maybe have a few tricks that you don't know about yet. If we share
Yes.
those struggles that we're having, it's amazing the resources that suddenly start to pop up that are easy to implement and that make us feel a lot more supported and just a lot more happy in our lives in general.
Yes, that is so true. And through doing this podcast, I've connected with a lot of people who have different types of disabilities I've been able to interview. And the one thing that a lot of them say is that the network of support that they've had throughout their life, and they can remember being, younger, and just how extended family and family friends just really stepped in to help. And, and even today where they have friends, and even for myself, where, having friends that just over the last year that have just checked in on me and said, hey, I'm going to the store. Do you need anything? Knowing that, with the pandemic, I wasn't going outside as much. So it's just, those who are offering help, thank you so much. And just being willing to accept the help. And like you said, connecting with other families who are experiencing the same or similar diagnosis as you are. And, what works for them, and you might be able to try it and say like, oh, wow, that works for us too.
Well, absolutely. And it's gold, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those connections are gold. And I love that you brought up like this last year, like, with COVID and the pandemic and everything
Yes.
that's been happening, feeling safe in general has been a very hard thing for everybody.
Yes.
And if you're a parent or a person, like many of us are introverts, or just someone who tends to be a little more, I'll figure this out myself, there's a really good chance you've isolated yourself in this last year,
right,
slowly without even realizing it. So, maybe just take a little inventory and make sure that you're getting what you need, because that's just those people, those resources, it's just invaluable.
Yeah, it's really, and the great thing that I love about, one of the great things I love about social media is that it gives people a platform now to put themselves out there, and coaches and support systems and groups that they've created a lot of groups on social media, on Facebook and things like that, where you can get connected to other people to share resources and to know what's available out there, because a lot of times some services that are available, they're difficult to find. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, so it's difficult
They
to
want you to find them, but
right,
they want you to find them, but how do they get to you?
right,
Social media is great.
yes, yeah, so it's really great to to connect with other people, and see what works for them, and it might just work for you as well. So yeah, thank you so much for this conversation, for this great these great steps and tips that we can again utilize and implement within our own families to better, like I said, just make us all work together as a unit. And it's that we're better together.
We are. It
Yeah,
sounds cheesy, but it's so true.
but it's so true. It is. It's so true. And then it's again going back to what we were just saying about um, accepting the help, and just being willing to uh, let go, because that's part of a self-care thing as well. And it really helps alleviate some of the not much, but it helps alleviate some of the stress that might be going on, and just bringing other people into to assist with some things that you may need help with. So it's very important that again, it's very important. I'm very glad that we had this conversation, and I appreciate your time and your knowledge, and the way you just broke everything down was very easy to understand. So I thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you. It's a great opportunity, a great conversation, and I always love an opportunity to share and to help.
Yeah, great. So thank you so much, and you have a great day.
You too.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the OurView Podcast. Leave us a review wherever you listen, and let us know what you liked about this episode. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and be sure to follow us on all social media platforms for more disability-related content at OurView for Life. That's OurView, the number 4, LIFE. If you listen to this episode on your phone, take a screenshot and post it to your Instagram or Facebook stories, and be sure to tag us. We thank you for listening, and take care.